She's shy around strangers, the man said, tightening his grip on the little girl's shoulder. Aren't you, Sophie? But Staff Sergeant Roderick Vale wasn't convinced, especially when the child met his gaze and gave a silent hand signal. Every trained guardian knows to fear. So what did that signal mean? And what happened when Vale broke centuries of protocol to respond? Before we reveal that, hit the subscribe button and drop a comment below, telling us where in the world you're watching from. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Staff Sergeant Roderick Vale stood immobile, the summer sun glinting off his ceremonial uniform, as cathedral bells chimed the hour across London. The palace courtyard buzzed with excited tourists, their cameras flashing against the backdrop of centuries-old stone walls and fluttering royal standards. Unlike most guards with their fixed thousand-year stare, Vale had developed a habit of reading the crowds through subtle focus shifts, a skill that had saved his life twice during his tours in conflict zones. His military service had taught him that awareness meant survival in combat zones and palace duty alike. Through the sea of tourists clustered against the ceremonial barriers, a pair of eyes caught his attention. Not with admiration or curiosity like the others, but unmistakable fear. They belonged to a small girl, perhaps 8 years old. While other children bounced excitedly, pointing at the guards' bearskin hats, she remained still, shoulders hunched as if trying to disappear. Despite the July heat that had tourists in summer clothes, she wore long sleeves that covered most of her body. The man gripping her shoulder wore expensive clothes, his smile practiced. When observed, Val noticed how his fingers dug into her shoulder, when unobserved, making her flinch. "Stand up straight," the man hissed. "Remember what I told you? No talking." The girl nodded silently. When the man checked his phone, her posture briefly relaxed before tensing again. Under his grip, Vale thought of his own daughters, Min and Charlotte, their laughter and trust. The contrast with this girl's distress tightened something in his chest. As the morning progressed, Vale's concerns deepened. The girl's eyes tracked the man, constantly maintaining exactly the distance he permitted. When a family with laughing children passed by, she watched them with longing, before quickly looking down when the man squeezed her arm. "Excited to see the guards, sweetheart?" a tourist asked the girl. The man interrupted smoothly. "She's shy around strangers, aren't you, Sophie?" The girl nodded, but Vale noticed a slight delay before responding to the name, barely perceptible but significant to someone trained to read body language. "My niece is visiting from Manchester," the man added, hand never leaving her shoulder. Her first time seeing the ceremony, when the crowd pressed forward, the man lifted the girl up. Her sleeve rode up, revealing bruising around her wrist, the unmistakable pattern of adult fingers that had gripped too tightly. "One more hour." Vale heard him mutter. "Then we're leaving, and if you've been good, maybe I won't punish you tonight." The girl's shoulders sagged with resignation. Vale felt the familiar pre-combat tension, but remained bound by ceremonial duty. The man positioned them partially hidden from security cameras, while whispering to the girl. Vale caught fragments. "Remember what I said about running? They'll never believe you. No one's looking for you anymore." The girl remained expressionless, but her fingers curled into fists, controlling fear, not defiance. When jostled by another tourist, the man yanked her upright, revealing more bruises in various healing stages on her arm. The man noticed Vale watching and quickly adjusted her clothing, checking his watch before moving toward the edge of the crowd. Vale recognized the predatory behavior from counter-trafficking, training the regiment had received just months earlier. The girl's responses, hypervigilance, flinching, resigned compliance, suggested sustained trauma, not just strict parenting. Her complete silence throughout the ceremony was telling. Survival through invisibility. The way she calculated each movement before making it, how she anticipated the man's moods, through subtle shifts in his posture, spoke of someone who had learned that survival depended on reading her captor's intentions. It reminded Vale of hostages he'd encountered in war zones, people who had developed the same haunted hyper-awareness. When the man checked exit routes, the girl's eyes met Vale's directly. The sunlight caught the unshed tears brimming at her lashes, magnifying the blue of her irises. Her look conveyed desperate pleading that cut through his professional reserve and struck something primal in him. The instinct that had once made him run into gunfire to save a wounded comrade. An elderly couple had been watching with concern. The woman approached. "Lovely day for your visit," she said to the girl. "First time seeing the guards." The man answered for her. "My niece is shy. We're in a hurry." "I taught primary school for 40 years, she persisted. "Shy children are often the most observant." Her husband added, "My wife has a gift with children." Vale recognized their strategy, creating a protective social buffer around the girl. "Sophie, would you like a sweet?" the woman offered. Again, Vale noticed the girl's slight hesitation at the name. "No sweets before lunch," the man replied with an edge that made the couple exchange glances. Her young mother stopped nearby. "My daughter has that same backpack from the Manchester School District," she said, pointing to the pink bag. "The name tag looks turned in. Shouldn't it say Sophie?" The man's hand tightened. "We need to go," he said abruptly, pulling the girl toward the exit. "Our tour bus is waiting, but the ceremony isn't finished," the elderly man protested. "Change of plans," the man snapped, dragging the girl through the crowd. Vale tracked them while maintaining position. The girl looked back, once her eyes meeting his with intensity that communicated everything. Both knew the next moments would determine her fate. The man pulled her roughly toward the gates, his head constantly scanning for security while maintaining a grip that made her stumble. "Walk properly," he hissed. "You're making a scene." A tour group briefly blocked Vale's view. When they moved, he saw the pair nearly at the exit, moments from disappearing into London streets. "Excuse me, sir," called the elderly man. "Your niece dropped something." The delay worked. In that moment of hesitation, the girl's eyes locked with Vale's across the forecourt. What happened next took seconds but would remain with Vale forever. The girl's right hand rose in what might appear as brushing hair from her eyes, but the movement continued with deliberate precision. Her fist closed, then opened, then pressed against her opposite palm. Vale recognized it instantly. The universal children's distress signal designed for those who knew to look for it. A silent cry for help. The man caught her movement, his face transforming to rage. He grabbed her wrist so hard she gasped. "You little," he growled, abandoning pretense as he dragged her toward the exit. Vale's military mind assessed options in milliseconds. Breaking formation could end his career, but the alternative was unthinkable. Beyond the guardsman stood the soldier. Beyond the soldier stood the father. In that moment, Staff Sergeant Roderick Vale made his decision. The crack of his boots against stone echoed as Vale broke position. Tourists gasped, cameras swinging toward him. The other guards remained still, though their peripheral vision tracked him. Palace security of Vale's voice carried full military authority. "Stop right there." The man froze momentarily, giving Vale time to close the distance. Tourists scattered from his path. Phones raised to capture the unprecedented scene. "Release the child immediately," Vale commanded. "This is outrageous," the man blustered, accent refined again. "This is my niece. We have a schedule. Release her now." Vale positioned himself between them and the exit. The girl stood frozen, eyes wide. The man's grip loosened slightly in shock, but he maintained contact. "This is none of your business," the man hissed quietly. "You're making a mistake." "Do you know who I am?" "I know exactly what you are," Vale replied, making eye contact with the girl. "Young lady, would you like to step over here while I speak with your uncle?" His hesitation made clear. He didn't believe the relationship. The girl's eyes darted between them, conditioning warring with hope. "She's not going anywhere with us," the man snapped. "Return to your post before I report this harassment." Palace security approached quickly. One guard had discreetly radioed for support. "Sir, I observed the international distress signal from this child," Vale stated loudly. "Protocol requires me to ensure her safety." The crowd formed a circle around them. The elderly couple pushed forward. "That man's behavior has concerned us for the past half hour." The elderly man called. "The child is frightened of him," and she didn't respond naturally to the name. "Sophie," added the mother. "He became defensive when I mentioned Manchester schools." The man's eyes darted between witnesses approaching security and the blocked exit. His respectable mask began slipping. "Last chance," Vale said quietly. "Release her arm or I'll remove your hand myself." "This is absurd," the man declared to the crowd. "I'm her Uncle Sophie. Tell this man who I am." The girl remained silent, eyes fixed downward. Vale noticed again how she didn't respond to the name, "young lady." Vale said gently, kneeling to her level while blocking escape routes. "The signal you made, we teach children to use it when they need help. Was that why you made it?" Before she could answer, the man interrupted. She was just brushing her hair. "This is ridiculous. I need identification," Vale stated firmly, "and documentation of your relationship to this child." Palace security arrived. "Sergeant, what's the situation?" "Suspected child endangerment," Vale responded crisply. The child displayed the international distress signal. I've observed multiple signs of abuse. The man produced ID. Daniel Harwick, British citizen. My niece Sophie is visiting from Manchester. I have temporary guardianship while her mother is hospitalized. This is a misunderstanding. The security officer examined the ID while Vale watched the girl who trembled, now that adults stood between her and her captor. Can you tell us your full name? A female officer asked the girl. The girl's eyes checked with the man before whispering, Sophie Harwick. Vale noticed her unnatural delivery, forming the name as if reading rather than stating her identity. How old are you? The officer continued. 8, she replied after another glance at the man. Your uncle says your mother is in hospital. Can you tell me her name? Panic crossed the girl's face. Aunt, I mean my mom, is the man interrupted. Her mother's name is Elizabeth, my sister. This questioning is upsetting her. The elderly woman stepped forward. Earlier, she didn't react to the name Sophie until after he responded for her. And look at her backpack, added the young mother. The name tag is turned inward. Vale reached for the pink backpack. The man lunged to stop him, but security blocked him. Vale turned the tag outward, written in childish handwriting. Ly Bennett, Year 3, Oakwood Primary. That's not her backpack, the man said quickly. She must have picked up another child's by mistake, Lily Vale asked directly. Is your name Lily Bennett? Recognition flickered in her eyes before she looked fearfully at the man. It's okay, Vale assured her. He can't hurt you now. Are you Lily Bennett from Oakwood Primary? Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. Yes, my name is Lily. He took me from school. He said my parents were dead and nobody wanted me anymore. The crowd gasped as security immediately restrained the man whose face transformed to cold fury. You're making a mistake, he snarled, pretense abandoned. You have no idea who you're dealing with. A tourist stepped forward. I recognize her. Lily Bennett missing for 3 weeks. It's been all over Manchester news. She showed her phone with a missing child alert matching the girl. Security tightened their grip on the man radioing for police, Daniel Harwick. If that's even your real name, Vale said with contained fury, you're under arrest for kidnapping and child endangerment. I suspect police will find evidence of worse crimes. For a moment, stillness descended. The calm before a storm. The man's charm vanished, replaced by cold calculation. His eyes flicked between security exits and witnesses, assessing options with predatory precision. You've got nothing, he said quietly. The girl is confused, traumatized from her mother's illness. The female officer stood protectively beside Lily, who shook uncontrollably. Vale watched the man's posture for signs of action. Police are 3 minutes out, the male officer announced. Sir, remain calm. The explosion of movement came with professional suddenness. The man elbowed the officer's solar plexus, following with a headbutt that dropped him. As the officer fell, the man produced a concealed blade, lunging toward Lily. If I can't have her, no one will, he snarled. Vale's combat training took over muscle memory from 100 close-quarter battle drills flowing through him. Without conscious thought, he intercepted the attack with a fluid precision that transformed the ceremonial guard into the elite soldier beneath the uniform. His left hand swept outward, deflecting the knife arm along its natural arc, while simultaneously driving his right fist into the man's sternum with a sickening impact that folded him forward. The man recovered with the practiced skill of someone who had clearly engaged in violence before pivoting on his back foot and slashing wildly as tourists scattered with screams of panic. The polished blade caught the afternoon light before finding Vale's forearm, slicing through the ceremonial red wool and into flesh. Blood bloomed against the fabric, but Vale barely registered the pain, as combat focus narrowed his world to the immediate threat. His pupils dilating and peripheral awareness sharpening, the same state that had kept him alive during an ambush in Helmand years before. Get the girl away, Vale shouted to the female officer who pulled Lily behind the protective circle of guards who had abandoned their posts. What followed wasn't professional restraint, but unleashed fury. Vale blocked another knife thrust and countered with devastating force, his fist connecting with the man's jaw with an audible crack. The man staggered, swinging the blade in desperate arcs. You're dead, the man hissed through bloody teeth. You have no idea who I work with. They'll find you and your family. The threat against his daughters ignited something primal in Vale. His next attack delivered the full force of protective rage. His fist shattered cartilage in the man's face. Before the kidnapper recovered, Vale struck his throat, collapsing his airway, followed by a precision blow to the temple that dropped him instantly. Vale didn't stop. The knife clattered away as he pinned the predator beneath him, his fists continuing their punishment. Each impact accompanied visions of his daughters, of what could have happened to Lily, of other possible victims. That's enough, Sergeant Vale. Enough, Hans pulled him away from the bloodied kidnapper. Vale fought briefly before military discipline reasserted itself. He's down, a colleague said firmly. It's over. Rod, Vale allowed himself to be pulled up in his uniform, torn and blood-stained, knuckles split. The kidnapper lay unrecognizable on the ground. Get a medic, Vale ordered harshly. Make sure he lives to face justice. Police sirens approached as medical staff rushed to the scene. Vale stood breathing heavily while guards secured the area. Sergeant, you need medical attention, a palace staffer urged, indicating his bleeding arm. The girl first. Vale insisted, finding Lily huddled against the female officer, trembling, but watching him with something like wonder. Is he dead? She whispered. No, Vale assured her. He's hurt, but will face justice for what he's done. Police secured the area while medics loaded the unconscious kidnapper onto a stretcher. Hands scuffed. You're bleeding, Lily said, pointing to Vale's arm with surprising concern, given her trauma. Vale managed a small smile. Just a scratch, he paused. Lily, how long has he had you? 3 weeks, she whispered tearfully. He took me from school, said my parents had an accident. Her voice broke. Then he said they were dead and nobody was looking for me. A female detective approached and introduced herself. Lily, I'm Detective Sharma. You're safe now. We've contacted your parents. They're flying down from Manchester right now. They're alive. Lily's voice cracked with desperate hope. Very much alive, Sharma confirmed. They have searched for you every day since you disappeared. Tears streamed down Lily's face, not silent, terrified tears, but the healing release of crushing fear finally lifted. Medical staff approached to check her injuries. I need to examine you, sweetheart, a female paramedic explained. Lily nodded, but her eyes sought Vale's. Will you stay? I'm still scared he might come back. He won't come back, Vale assured her, but yes, I'll stay until your parents arrive. As the paramedic began her examination, Detective Sharma pulled Vale aside. We found his phone, she said quietly. Initial reviews suggest this wasn't his first abduction. There are images of other children. He has international connections. Vale's jaw tightened, his earlier violence feeling justified. Will she recover? He asked, watching the paramedic document Lily's bruises. Children are remarkably resilient, Sharma replied. With support, she has every chance at full recovery. Your intervention likely saved her from worse trauma, possibly saved her life. Within an hour, the palace grounds had transformed into an investigation scene. The ceremony was suspended while evidence was collected. Vale sat outside the medical unit, arm bandaged, giving his statement to Detective Sharma. The distress signal was unmistakable, he explained, demonstrating the hand movement. It's taught specifically for situations when children can't verbally ask for help. That's what prompted you to break protocol. Sharma asked, though her tone suggested admiration. The signal confirmed my suspicions, Vale replied. The bruising fear inconsistencies in his story. Everything pointed to immediate danger. Palace officials conferred with police nearby, occasionally glancing toward Vale. His commanding officer, Major Lawrence, had arrived for intense discussions with security leadership. They'll review your actions, Sharma noted. Breaking formation is unprecedented. Vale nodded. I understand the consequences. I'd make the same choice again. Their conversation was interrupted by commotion at the checkpoint. A couple arrived, the woman sobbing while the man supported her, both faces etched with desperate hope. Police escorted them quickly through security. Lily's parents, Sharma, confirmed they were flown down by police helicopter. Vale stood respectfully as the Bennett were brought to where Lily waited. When she saw them, she launched herself from the examination table with a cry holding 3 weeks of suppressed terror and longing. Mommy, Daddy. Mrs. Bennett fell to her knee, embracing her daughter with such intensity, it seemed she might never let go. Mr. Bennett enveloped them both, shoulders shaking with silent sobs as he kissed his daughter's hair. We never stopped looking, Mrs. Bennett repeated through tears, not for one moment. After several minutes, Detective Sharma gently interrupted Mr. and Mrs. Bennett. I am Detective Sharma. We'll need to take Lily to hospital for examination, but I wanted you to meet the man who rescued your daughter. She gestured toward Vale. Mr. Bennett approached with shaking hands, extended. They told us what happened, he said, voice breaking. A Queen's Guard, breaking protocol to save our little girl. I have no words, Vale accepted the handshake. Your daughter saved herself. Sir, she remembered her safety training and had the courage to use it. Now Mrs. Bennett joined them. Lily clutched tight against her. You risked your career for a child you didn't know, she said tearfully. How can we thank you? No thanks necessary, Vale replied simply. I have daughters too. I did what any parent would do. As medical staff prepared to transport Lily, she broke from her mother's embrace and ran to Vale. Before he could react, she hugged him fiercely. Thank you for believing me, she whispered. Vale knelt to her level, his composure finally cracking as he returned her embrace. Always, he promised, always. The following morning, Vale reported to Major Lawrence's office as ordered, his dress uniform immaculate despite the bandage under his sleeve. Footage of a Queen's Guard breaking centuries of tradition to rescue a kidnapped child had gone viral worldwide. Sergeant Vale, Major Lawrence acknowledged. As Vale stood at attention at ease, Vale shifted to the more relaxed posture. Photos of the regiment's history lined the office walls. Generations of guards who had maintained traditions regardless of circumstances. You understand why you're here, Lawrence stated, expression neutral. Yes, sir, to address my breach of protocol. Lawrence nodded. In 362 years of regimental guard duties, no guardsman has abandoned his post during a ceremonial parade. I understand, sir, the protocol exists for a reason. Once broken, it risks undermining the discipline that defines our ceremonial role. Yes, sir, Lawrence paused, studying Vale. That said, there's no protocol addressing what to do when a guardsman observes a distress signal from a kidnapped child. He turned to the window. The palace has received over 15,000 messages since yesterday. Every major news outlet is covering the story. The regiment's social media has gained 2 million followers overnight. Vale remained silent. Your actions created a complicated situation. Lawrence continued, from a procedural standpoint, breaking formation warrants disciplinary action. He faced Vale directly. However, from a moral standpoint, your intervention saved a child missing for 3 weeks, apprehended a dangerous predator, and potentially protected countless other children. Lawrence lifted an official document from his desk. I have recommendations from the Palace Police and Regimental Command. Would you like to know what they say? Yes, sir. The unanimous recommendation is that while your breaking protocol must be noted to prevent establishing precedent, no disciplinary action should be taken. Lawrence allowed a slight smile. And in fact, the palace has requested you return to ceremonial duties as soon as medically cleared. Tourists are specifically coming to see the Hero Guard. Vale blinked in surprise. Sir, a formal letter of caution will be placed in your file, along with a commendation for extraordinary judgment in an unprecedented situation. He extended his hand in rare personal respect. The regiment is proud of you, Sergeant. There are moments when duty to humanity must supersede even our most sacred traditions. She's just shy around strangers, the man said, tightening his grip on the little girl's shoulder. Aren't you Sophie? But Staff Sergeant Roderick Vale wasn't convinced. Not when the girl met his gaze and made a small, deliberate hand gesture, a silent signal that every trained guardian has been taught to fear. So, what did that signal mean? And what happened when Vale shattered centuries of protocol to respond? Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Now let's get into it. Staff Sergeant Roderick Vale stood perfectly still. Sunlight glinted off his polished ceremonial uniform as the bells of a nearby cathedral chimed noon across the city of London. The palace courtyard buzzed with tourists, cameras flashing against ancient stone walls and fluttering royal standards. Unlike most guards trained to maintain a fixed, emotionless stare, Vale had developed a subtle skill reading the crowd. Years of military service had taught him that awareness could mean the difference between life and death, whether in a war zone or on palace grounds. And that's when he saw her. A pair of eyes wide with unmistakable fear, staring back at him. Not curiosity, not admiration. Fear. She was no older than 8, while other children bounced with excitement, pointing at the guards' bearskin hats. This little girl stood frozen, shoulders hunched, trying to disappear. Despite the summer heat that had tourists in t-shirts and sundresses, she wore long sleeves that hid most of her arms. The man beside her wore designer clothing and a carefully curated smile, at least when people were watching. When they weren't, his fingers dug into the girl's shoulder. She flinched. "Stand up straight," he hissed. "Remember what I told you, no talking." She nodded, eyes downcast. When the man turned to check his phone, her posture eased for a moment, then snapped back the second he looked up. Vale thought of his own daughters, Emma and Charlotte, of their laughter and light. The girl in front of him had neither. As the ceremony continued, so did Vale's unease. The girl moved only when the man allowed. She watched him constantly reading his cues, adjusting her behavior to stay within his limits. When a cheerful family passed by, she stared longingly at the children until the man squeezed her arm and she looked down again. "Are you excited to see the guards, sweetheart?" a tourist asked. Before she could answer, the man stepped in. "She's shy around strangers, aren't you, Sophie?" The girl nodded, but Vale caught it again. That pause, that hesitation, that name. "My niece is visiting from Manchester," the man added, keeping a firm grip on her. First time seeing the ceremony. Then the crowd surged forward and the man lifted the girl up. Her sleeve rode up slightly and Vale's stomach turned. Finger-shaped bruises, old and new. "One more hour," the man muttered. "And if you behave, maybe I won't punish you tonight." The girl's shoulders sank. Not fear, not defiance, just resignation. The man shifted their position away from cameras. He bent down, whispering, "Remember what I said about running? No one's looking for you. No one would believe you." "Yeah, Mom." She said nothing, but Vale saw her tiny fist clench, not in defiance, but in silent control of her terror. Another tourist bumped into them. The man yanked the girl upright again, exposing more bruises, layers of pain, old and healing. He caught Vale watching, adjusted her clothes, and checked his watch. Then he began to edge toward the far corner of the courtyard. Vale recognized it, predatory behavior, just like the signs taught in the regiment's anti-trafficking training. This wasn't a strict uncle. This was something far worse. The girl's every movement was calculated, controlled, conditioned. Her silence wasn't timidity, it was survival. It reminded Vale of child hostages he'd seen in war zones, that same haunted stillness, that same hyper-awareness. Then her eyes met his again. And in them, behind unshed tears, was a silent plea. It pierced through everything protocol duty training, just instinct. Nearby, an elderly couple had been watching, uneasy. The woman stepped forward. "Lovely day, isn't it?" she said to the girl. "Is this your first time seeing the guards?" Again, the man cut in. "She's shy. We're in a hurry." "I taught primary school for 40 years, the woman said gently. "Shy children are often the most observant," her husband added. "My wife has a gift with kids." Vale understood what they were doing, creating a social barrier. A shield. "Would you like a sweet, Sophie?" the woman asked kindly. Again, the girl hesitated. Again, the name didn't quite fit. "No sweets before lunch," the man snapped. Then a young mother passing by paused. "My daughter has that same backpack from Manchester," she said, pointing to the girl's bag. But the name tags flipped. "Shouldn't it say Sophie?" The man tensed, his hand gripped tighter. "We have to go." "Our tour bus is waiting," he said sharply, dragging the girl toward the exit. "But the ceremony isn't over," the elderly man protested. Change of plan. Vale watched as they began pushing through the crowd. The girl looked back, her eyes locked with his. Everything was decided in that moment. The man pulled her faster. She stumbled. He hissed, "Walk properly. You're making a scene." A tour group briefly blocked Vale's view. When they passed, the pair were nearly at the gate, almost gone. "Excuse me, sir," the old man called. "Your niece dropped something." The man paused. That pause saved her life. Her eyes shot across the courtyard straight to Vale. Then with quiet precision, she raised her right hand. It looked like brushing hair away, but it wasn't. Fist closed, opened, pressed into opposite palm, the silent hand signal, the universal cry for help. Vale didn't hesitate. Couldn't, wouldn't. Palace security moved in fast. One guard had discreetly radioed for backup. "Sir, I observed the international distress signal from this child." Vale said, his voice sharp and commanding. "Protocol demands I ensure her safety." A hush fell over the gathering crowd as they began forming a loose circle. The elderly couple stepped forward. "That man's behavior has worried us for over 30 minutes, the older gentleman called out. "The girl's terrified of him, and she didn't even respond to the name Sophie until he prompted her," this young mother added. "He got defensive when I brought up Manchester schools." The man's eyes darted, tracking witnesses, blocked exits, calculating risk. His polished exterior began to crack. "Last chance," Vale said quietly, his voice low and dangerous. "Let go of her, or I'll remove your hand myself. This is absurd," the man declared, turning to the crowd with feigned offense. "I'm her uncle, Sophie. Tell them who I am." The girl said nothing. Her eyes remained on the ground. Vale noticed again no reaction to the name. He knelt down slowly to meet her gaze. Young lady, he said gently, the signal you used, we teach children to show it when they need help. Was that what you were trying to tell me? Before she could answer, the man interrupted harshly. She was brushing her hair. This whole thing is ridiculous. Vale stood unshaken. I'll need identification and documentation proving your relationship to this child. Just then, additional palace security arrived. Sergeant, what's the situation? One asked. Suspected child endangerment. Vale responded crisply. She displayed the international distress signal. I've observed multiple physical and behavioral signs of abuse. The man handed over a passport. Daniel Harwick, British citizen. He claimed the girl Sophie was his niece temporarily in his care while her mother was hospitalized. This is a misunderstanding, he said. She's just frightened. Her mother's in hospital. I've been looking after her. While the security officer reviewed the documents, Vale turned to the girl, trembling now that others stood between her and her captor. Can you tell us your full name? A female officer asked gently. The girl looked up at the man, then back down. Sophie Harwick, she whispered. Vale caught it immediately, the way she said the name, like reciting it from memory, not owning it. How old are you? Oi, again. Her eyes flicked to the man before answering. Your uncle says your mother is in the hospital. What's her name? Panic crossed her face. And, my mom is... The man jumped in. Her name is Elizabeth, my sister. This questioning is upsetting her. The elderly woman stepped forward again. Earlier, she didn't react to the name Sophie until he said it first. The young mother pointed. And that backpack, look at the tag. It's turned inward. Vale reached for the pink backpack. The man lunged to stop him, but palace security intercepted and restrained him. Vale turned the tag outward, written in a child's handwriting. Lily Bennett, Year 3, Oakwood Primary. That's not her backpack, the man snapped. She must have picked up someone else's by mistake. Vale met the girl's eyes. Lily, he asked softly, is your name Lily Bennett? Something flickered in her expression. Recognition before she looked fearfully at the man. It's okay, Vale said, calm and certain. He can't hurt you now. Are you Lily Bennett from Oakwood Primary? Tears welled in her eyes. She nodded. Yes, my name is Lily. He took me from school. He said my parents were dead, that nobody wanted me. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Palace security immediately restrained the man, whose expression turned icy and cruel. You're making a mistake, he growled. You have no idea who you're dealing with. A tourist stepped forward, holding up her phone. I recognize her. Lily Bennett. She's been missing for 3 weeks. It's all over the news in Manchester. The phone screen showed the missing child alert, a perfect match. Security called in local police. Vale stepped forward, his voice cold with controlled fury. Daniel Harwick, if that's even your real name, you're under arrest for kidnapping and child endangerment. And I suspect that won't be the worst charge by the time they're done with you. A tense stillness hung in the air. The man's charm was gone. Only calculation remained in his eyes, scanning exits, weighing options. You've got nothing, he muttered. The girl's confused. Her mother's illness has traumatized her. The female officer stepped protectively beside Lily, who was shaking violently. Police are 3 minutes out, a male guard reported. Sir, remain calm. He didn't. The man exploded into motion, elbowing the officer in the gut, following with a headbutt that sent him sprawling. In the same breath, he drew a concealed blade. If I can't have her, he snarled, no one will. But Vale was faster. Years of close-quarters combat kicked in, automatic, precise, brutal. His left arm deflected the knife with a fluid sweep. His right fist drove into the man's sternum with a sharp crack, folding him over. But the man recovered. He'd done this before. He twisted, slashing the blade wildly. The crowd screamed and scattered. Steel flashed and cut across Vale's forearm, slicing through red ceremonial wool and into flesh. Blood soaked the uniform. Vale didn't flinch. His focus narrowed. Combat tunnel vision set in just like Hellman, years ago. Get the girl out, Vale barked. The female officer pulled Lily behind a circle of now alert guards. What followed was not restraint. It was righteous fury. Vale blocked another thrust, then countered fist connecting with jaw-cracking bone. The man staggered, slashing in panic. You're dead, he spat through blood. You don't know who I work for. They'll find your family. Vale's rage ignited. You threatened his daughters. He attacked with the full force of a father in battle. His punch broke cartilage. Another strike collapsed the man's airway. A third knocked him out cold. But Vale wasn't done. He pinned the man's fist, raining down. Images of his daughters, of Lily. of every child this man might have hurt. That's enough. Sergeant Vale, stand down. A fellow guard. Hans yanked him back. Vale resisted, then exhaled. Military discipline returned. He's down, someone said. The blades recovered. Paramedics and police en route. It's over, Rod. Vale allowed himself to be pulled up, his ceremonial uniform, torn and bloodied knuckles, split and raw. The kidnapper lay sprawled on the stone, barely recognizable beneath bruises and blood. Get a medic, Vale rasped. Make sure he lives on my trade. To face justice, sirens wailed in the distance as medical teams rushed in. Guards worked quickly to clear and secure the area. A palace staffer moved toward Vale. Sergeant, you need medical attention, your arm. The girl first, Vale said firmly, turning. He found Lily huddled against the female officer, still trembling, but watching him now with something new in her eyes, wonder. Is he dead, she whispered. No, Vale assured her gently. He's hurt, but he'll face justice for what he's done. Police cordoned off the area while medics loaded the unconscious man onto a stretcher. His wrists handcuffed, his expression slack. You're bleeding, Lily pointed out softly, her voice small but filled with a concern. Vale smiled faintly. Just a scratch, he said, then carefully. Lily, how long has he had you? 3 weeks. She whispered, tears welling. He took me from school, said my parents were in an accident. Then he told me they died. That no one wanted me, her voice broke. A female detective approached Lily. I'm Detective Sharma. You're safe now. We've already contacted your parents. They're flying down from Manchester right now. They're alive, Lily's voice cracked, trembling with hope. Very much alive, Sharma confirmed with a soft smile. They've been searching for you every single day. Tears flooded Lily's cheeks. Not the silent ones of fear, but the kind that flood in when fear finally releases its grip. A paramedic gently approached Sweetheart. I need to examine your injuries, okay? Lily nodded, but her eyes stayed locked on Vale. Will you stay? I'm still scared. He might come back. He won't, Vale said, his voice full of certainty. But yes, Lily, I'll stay, I promise. As the paramedic began tending to her, Sharma pulled Vale aside. We found his phone, she said quietly. Preliminary review shows images of other children. This wasn't his first abduction. He's connected to something bigger, possibly international. Vale's jaw clenched. His earlier violence now felt more than justified. Will she recover? They both looked toward Lily, now having her bruises documented. Children are resilient, Sharma replied. With the right support, she has every chance. Your intervention likely saved her life. By that afternoon, the palace courtyard had become a full-fledged crime scene. The changing of the guard was suspended. Evidence markers dotted the stone ground. Vale sat outside the medical tent, arm freshly bandaged, giving his official statement. The signal was clear. He explained, demonstrating the universal child distress gesture. It's taught for situations where children can't speak. She made it deliberately. That's what made you break protocol? Sharma asked, though her tone was no longer one of interrogation but admiration. It confirmed everything I was already seeing her. Fear, the bruises, his lies. She was in immediate danger. Nearby palace officials conversed in hushed tones. Major Lawrence had arrived now, deep in talks with security leaders. They'll review your actions, Sharma noted. Breaking formation. It's unprecedented. Vale nodded. I understand the consequences, but I'd make the same choice again. Every time, just then, a commotion at the main gate. A couple approached, escorted urgently through security. The woman was sobbing, barely able to walk. The man held her close, his eyes raw with desperation. Lily's parents, Sharma confirmed. They were flown in by helicopter. Vale stood respectfully as they entered. Lily spotted them first. Her breath caught, and then without a word, she launched herself off the table and into their arms. Mommy. Daddy, Mrs. Bennett collapsed to her knees, wrapping Lily so tightly it was as if she'd never let go again. Mr. Bennett dropped beside them, arms around both, whispering into his daughter's hair. We never stopped looking, Mrs. Bennett sobbed. Not for 1 second. After a few minutes, Sharma gently intervened. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, I'm Detective Sharma. We'll take Lily to the hospital shortly, but there's someone you should meet first. She nodded toward Vale. Mr. Bennett turned, walking toward him, hands trembling. They told us what you did, he said, voice breaking. A Queen's Guard, breaking centuries of tradition to save our daughter. I don't know what to say. Vale took his hand. Your daughter saved herself, sir, he said. She remembered her safety training. She had the courage to use it. Mrs. Bennett joined them, arms still wrapped protectively around Lily. "You risked your career for a child you didn't even know," she said, her eyes glistening. "How do we ever thank you?" "No thanks needed," Vale replied quietly. "I have daughters too. I just did what any parent would do." Lily broke free from her mother's arms one last time and ran to Vale. Before he could react, she hugged him tightly, burying her face in his chest. "Thank you for believing me," she whispered. Vale knelt holding her close, his composure breaking at last. "Always," he said softly, "always." The next morning, Vale reported to Major Lawrence's office in full dress uniform, a clean bandage hidden beneath his sleeve. The footage had already gone viral worldwide. A Queen's Guard breaking formation to rescue a kidnapped girl. "Sergeant Vale," Major Lawrence said, nodding. "At ease." Vale relaxed slightly. The walls were lined with portraits of generations of guards, men who had stood stoically for centuries without flinching. "No matter what happened around them, you understand why you're here?" Lawrence asked. "Yes, sir, to address my breach of protocol. In 362 years, no guard has ever abandoned their post during a ceremonial parade," Lawrence said. "I understand, sir, and I understand why that discipline matters." Lawrence studied him for a long moment. "That said, there is no protocol for what to do when a guardsman witnesses a kidnapped child giving the international distress signal." He turned toward the window. "The palace has received over 15,000 messages. Major news outlets are covering the story. Our regiment's social media gained over 2 million new followers overnight." Vale remained silent. "Your actions created a very complex situation," Lawrence continued. "From a procedural standpoint, you broke tradition. But from a moral one, you saved a life. Possibly more than one." He picked up a document. "I've received recommendations from the palace, the Metropolitan Police, and Regimental Command. Would you like to hear them?" "Yes, sir." "Unanimously, they recommend no disciplinary action. Your decision will be officially noted, but so will your extraordinary judgment." Lawrence offered a rare smile. "In fact, the palace has requested you return to ceremonial duty as soon as you're cleared. Tourists are lining up to see the Hero Guard." Vale blinked in quiet disbelief. "A letter of caution will be placed in your file," Lawrence added, "along with a commendation. You've made this regiment proud, Sergeant. Sometimes duty to humanity must override even our oldest traditions." He extended his hand. Vale took it, his grip firm. "Roderick," Vale had broken formation, and by doing so upheld the very highest duty of all. Vale accepted the handshake, relief washing over him like a quiet tide. "Thank you, sir." Major Lawrence gave a small nod, his voice returning to its formal register. "One more thing. The regiment has approved compassionate leave for you." Vale straightened slightly. "Lily Bennett's parents have requested your presence at a family gathering this weekend." Lawrence continued. "They'd like your daughters to meet their daughter." For the first time since stepping into that office, Vale's rigid bearing softened. Emotion cracked through the layers of military formality. "I'd be honored, sir." "Dismissed," Sergeant Lawrence said, the smallest smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "And well done." 3 days later, the warm breeze of a summer afternoon drifted across the Bennett family garden in Manchester. Roderick Vale sat beneath the shade of a tree, watching his daughters, Emma and Charlotte, laugh as they played on the lawn with Lily. The girls were already inseparable. "She's sleeping through the night again," Sarah Bennett said quietly as she joined him on the garden bench. "The therapist says it's remarkable. She has a long road ahead, but her resilience, it's extraordinary." Vale nodded, eyes never leaving the children. Lily sat cross-legged, carefully weaving daisy chains. The bruises were fading, but more important than that, the haunted look in her eyes had begun to lift, replaced by something fragile but real: safety. "Belonging children are stronger than we think," Vale said softly, "especially when they know they're not alone." David Bennett approached with drinks in hand. "The police called this morning," he said, his tone somber. "Turns out his real name wasn't Daniel Harwick. He's wanted in 3 countries for similar crimes." Vale's expression darkened. "Will Lily have to testify?" "No," Sarah answered, visibly relieved. "They found enough evidence on his devices. She won't have to relive any of it." They watched in comfortable silence as the children played until David spoke again. "They also told us something else." He hesitated. The words caught in his throat. Based on intercepted communications, he was planning to take Lily out of the country that same night. If you hadn't intervened, he didn't need to finish. The alternate outcome hung between them like a shadow. A family shattered, a child lost. "How did you know?" Sarah asked, voice thick with emotion. So many people passed her without noticing. What made you see what others missed? Vale glanced at his daughters, then back at Lily. Part of it was training, he admitted. The distress signal, the behavioral signs. But mostly, he paused. I saw her through a father's eyes. And once you see a child in danger like that, truly see them. You can't look away. On the lawn, Lily placed a crown of daisies on Charlotte's head and looked up. She caught Vale watching her. Her smile still healing, still tender, said everything words couldn't. Later, as Vale stood to leave, Lily approached him shyly. She held something in her hand. I made this for you, she said, holding out a folded piece of paper. Mommy helped me write it. He opened the homemade card. On one side was a drawing of a queen's guard in a bearskin hat. On the other, in neat childlike handwriting, it read, Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Vale knelt, emotion tightening in his chest. You were never invisible, Lily, he said gently. Not to those who know how to look. He glanced at his daughters, then back to Lily. Promise me something. Well, promise you'll always remember how brave you were. That signal you made. It didn't just save you. It may have saved others too. They found evidence he hurt other children before you. Lily nodded solemnly. We learned it at school, the signal. They taught us what to do if we were scared and couldn't talk. Then your teachers are heroes too, Vale said. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right. Even when you're terrified, Lily hugged him tight over her shoulder. Vale locked eyes with her parents, a silent understanding passed between them. Some bonds forged in crisis last forever. Driving home that evening, the car was filled with tired giggles and soft chatter. From the backseat, Charlotte asked Daddy, Did you really break the rules to save that girl? Vale glanced at them through the rearview mirror. There are rules that guide us, he said thoughtfully, and duties that define us. But sometimes you have to choose which matters more. I think you chose right, Emma declared with the confidence of an 8-year-old. Vale smiled the reflection of both daughters in the mirror. So do I, love. So do I. What would you do if you saw a child in danger? Would you recognize the universal distress signal that Lily used? Sometimes the difference between tragedy and rescue is just one person paying attention while others look away. Staff Sergeant Roderick Vale risked his career because he knew some duties rise above uniform and protocol. If this story moved you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful Royal Guard stories. Tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. And most importantly, share this video with someone who should know about the child distress signal. It could save a life.